We're live! Yay! Sup, shredders? My name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SB live streams number 14 of the $6 request live streams, where you, for just $6, you can order yourself a song review. It can be of a song you've made, or a song. Wow, the captions are having a spasm, aren't they? Spasmante. It doesn't even allow me to say the word. Well, for just $6, you can have yourself a track reviewed, either your own or someone else's. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves Firefox. And yeah, we have the queue, which is 0 at the moment. It is open though, I think. The queue on Ko-fi is now open. Yeah? Yay! We'll make that real nice and big so that people can see it. Yay! And then 270. Open. Yeah. Cool. The queue is open. And we'll put that. Nope. That will just fit there. Cool. Yeah. So I suppose we should start with music news. We can go into the chat period of this. We didn't actually have the intro button chosen. So the intro button, the chat button's now on. If we go for music news, what do we have? Why catchy songs get stuck in your head? Why they get stuck in your head and how to stop it. Okay. How do we stop songs getting stuck in our head? Like, hello, Blue Dinner Box. How are you today? You okay? You been taking care of yourself? What you been up to? Tell me a story. Or not. You can just chill if you want, either way. Music is a sensory experience that can stick with you long after it's gone. Music doesn't even be played out loud. Is actually the chat time? We could just hit the chat time. We know it's the chat time, don't we? We know it's the chat time. Perhaps even reading the word espresso puts Sabrina Carpenter's hit song of the same name and its lyrics in your head. Listening to the song, however, is even more potent for making you hear it afterward. If you have ever had a song on repeat in your brain, you are not alone. Catching an earworm or having involuntary musical imagery in psychological parlance is exceedingly common and universal. Warning, the story is about the science of how songs worm their ways into our heads. Though they are generally not believed to be hazardous to human health, some songs may be highly contagious and cute. That's very cute. I like the fact that we're doing this. This is very cute. Please proceed with curiosity and caution. At the end of the story, there will be an evidence-based ways of deworming yourself musically. Oh, you're moving. Is it like a big move? Is it like you're moving stuff around? What's going on? You don't have to go into too much detail. I know it's a private thing, but all the best for the move. Hopefully that goes well. Sup, Jacob? How you doing? Hopefully you're well. How's your weekend going? I'm assuming that it's the weekend for y'all. It's Saturday here in Aotearoa. It doesn't know New Zealand. That the Aotearoa is the. There you go. That I had it for a moment. That is the Maori name. That is a Maori name for it. Sup, Droy and Joe. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you're well. Hopefully your weekend is going okay. Of all the sounds we encounter, music seems to be the stickiest for our brains. This is an article on how music gets stuck in your head. I'm just having a read of this just to start off the live stream. While words and sounds can also pop into our head, they are less likely to echo there than songs, which tend to have a repetitive structure and looping motifs. Speech doesn't inherently have that structure, but poetry might. Simply repeating spoken words can make them sound musical. A phenomenon known as the speech-to-song illusion, which was discovered by psychologist Diana Deutsch. Deutsch? Deutsch. Yeah, it's Deutsch. Diana Deutsch. But not all songs are catchy, even if they are good. Okay. So basically, you just get inundated. The key to making a successful track is that you just get absolutely inundated with it. Sup, Judith? How's it going? Hopefully you're well. Hopefully your weekend is going well. I've been doing some stuff with the audio, and it seems like I'm pretty sure that the audio levels. Sorry about the audio levels for last week, by the way. I wasn't aware that after I'd updated the plugins, that the limiter had been deleted. The limiter on my mastering chain had been deleted. So like the audio on my mic was probably really quiet. Yeah. But yeah, I think this week it's better. This week it should be better, I think. But yeah. Always learning. Now, apparently, we've actually had a request. So Jacob has put through a track, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I will confirm now. Thank you, Jacob. So what does Jacob have for us today? Here we are. Thanks for your request. Copy that up here. Jacob. And he has put through a track. No Party for Xiao Dong. Love song. Have we heard this one before, Jacob? I'm keen to check it out regardless. But I feel semi-familiar with this one. I do wonder if I've heard this one before. You've been learning the basics of photography and lighting. Good on you. How are you finding that? Is it like, is the lingo like okay? Are you getting the terms? Have you been doing any practical stuff? Yeah. There's fun stuff when you get the hang of it, eh? What we're gonna have with it. Keen. Totally keen to check it out. Be good to hear it. Gonna listen to this track from No Party for Xiao Dong, Total Love Song. Get the art up there on the screen for you. Yeah, Spotify doesn't get bigger than that. It's zoomed in as much as I can. Visceral performance, eh? Phenomenal atmosphere with the range of instruments. 哦，
身边少了我啊，拜托你了。杀了他，顺便杀了我啊，拜托你了。杀了他，顺便杀了我，拜托你了。
fantastic contrast compositionally within this piece.
杀了他，顺便杀了我。
I mean, it's weirdly beautiful. I love the main motif, the hook line, the main melody over top of it. The textures are harsh. Just a really interesting combination of different elements there. But that was No Party for Dong, titled Love Song. Um Jacob Good says the hook, kill it while you're at it, kill me as well, I am begging you. For a love song, this kind of seems like at the very least it's about a severely toxic relationship, just someone being just destroyed, having these massive fluctuating emotions, just being completely overwhelmed, and then at other times being relatively sober about it. And I think that just makes it all the more intriguing from an actual structural perspective. I think that if you have too much of the same intensity, it can become uninteresting. It is a trap, you know. It is.
顺便
I think that another thing that works incredibly well about this is the actual expression from the singer. Like, it's just so visceral in many different parts. It's so believable. You can feel the pain, the destruction, even the self destruction that's occurring with every word that's uttered. Some parts are far more subtle when we're a bit more composed, but other times it's just raw.
但那错
And then you've got this incredible motif that kind of goes behind that with these really subtle drum parts there, which is the kicks, the hi-hats, and the snares there. Sometimes it's just like a shaker or a tambourine or something, just fill in the void there, almost like the void that the person is in as they try and figure their way out of the maze that they're in psychologically. And you contrast that with the later parts there with the really fuzzy guitars with the unison band stuff on the leads, the snare fills there, the crescendos and the fake outs, and then building up one more time, almost like we're trying to get up and leave. It's just sensational compositionally. So I think structurally it's phenomenal with the range of moods it encounters, the changes in the dynamics and the intensities of the various riffs within the piece. With a really tight technical proficient performance on top, it's the vocalist that makes it sensational with the way they're so authentic on the mic, as well as solid vocal technique and compelling melodies and sort of intent. And then it's just also literally everything else behind it instrumentally. They're just like the layering and knowing when to have less and when to have more that I think makes this track truly special. Thank you, Jacob, for sharing it. It's a really cool song. No Party for Xiaodong, titled Love Song. Judith says, my friends let me learn on their photo shooting session. It's amazing how they make a normal scene so dramatic using simple lighting ideas. Yeah. Yeah. Often less is more with that kind of stuff, eh? Like, there are some people, you see them in the Instagram reels and stuff, and the way that they make the shots. And it's mind blowing how they're able to accomplish those things outside of almost abnormal levels of creativity. But it's really cool that you're exploring that, trying to have some fun with it. I wish you all the best with that as well. This is an amazing journey. I think when you get to a point that you're satisfied with, I think it's incredible. I have a lot of respect for people who are good at that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people I think that are good, but if you can really make something happen, that's awesome. And all the best for your journey with this new thing. Hey, thank you for your request. Yours is the next track. We've got two in the queue, so I'll go two. And we've got Laufey with Falling Behind. It's good to hear more Laufey. It's good to hear more Laufey. I do like their music. I hope I'm pronouncing their name properly. I do find myself concerned sometimes. Laufey. Phonetically, I think that's the way it's done. But yeah, Falling Behind. Here we go. Just trying to get it properly structured in the playlist, Let's go, let's do it. Let's have some fun, eh? Let's go. Depending. Falling Behind. Hey, I know this one. This is the one that my students really like. I've had a few people come in to try and learn it on the guitar. It's a really beautiful song.
Moved out to a new city. June is dawning down on me, and all that I can find.
Or maybe I'm confusing it with a similar sounding
A
track.
sickly romance in the air. Lovers stroll without a care inside. Ooh, this can't be right. 'Cause the sun's engaged to the sky, and my best friends found a new guy. I'm only getting older. I've never had a shoulder to cry. Oh,
That control
someone
there.
to call mine. Everybody's falling in love, and I'm falling behind.
Like it, that quietness for her technique to be that on point is tremendous.
Touched the ocean, fell right in. Stepped outside and burned my skin. My life won't go my way. Bossa Nova in my room. Hope that I'll find someone to love. Because
the guitar and the piano there. Wonderful.
Friends found a new guy. I'm only getting older. I've never had a shoulder to cry on. Someone to call mine.
Interesting chromatic shifts there.
Everybody's falling in love, and I'm falling behind. Everybody's falling in love. Everybody's falling in love. Everybody's falling in love but me. One, two, three.
Because that would be a bossa nova groove behind that, wouldn't it? Or a style from that part of the world. I'm not as familiar with those as I should be. I think I am confusing that with another track off of the album. It could be Valentine. I'm not sure. Either way, I think this song from Laufey, titled Falling Behind, is about something that I think a lot of people that in their 20s and 30s can relate to, especially if you didn't you get married at like when you were young and stuff. You didn't find you marry your childhood sweetheart, that kind of vibe. It's feeling like you're not keeping up with the Joneses to an extent. It's just kind of like, oh, my friends are getting married. I haven't had anyone. No, what's wrong with me? What am I doing? I'm trying to go into the ocean. I'm trying to be a part of it, and then the moment I go outside, I get burnt. It's difficult. You know, they're trying to look within themselves, and then when they come out, they just want to go out of the shell. You know, it's really interesting imagery that is being put forward by Lofi, and they create this really sophisticated, elegant, yet accessible world for us to get lost in. One of the things I appreciate about this is just how completely unfiltered the vocals are here, in various from various parameters. So like one of them is that simply you have no vocal effects on Lofi at all. Her main vocal take is so raw, like you might have like a analog EQ on the mic channel, like, but you don't have any reverb. There's nothing helping her. That is just her on the microphone, and they can sing unbelievably well. Like there's phenomenal vocal technique. Knowing how to sing that quietly at that range to be able to sort of smash that is just absolutely it's spectacular. And it's so impressive nowadays, especially in a world where, you know, not to be too much of a kind of a boomer about it or a doomer, you just don't get that. A lot of people rely on tools and toys in order to get themselves across the line. And this is just a singer that can sort of speak their truth and tell its story without needing that. And I like that. Phenomenal amount of variety within the actual vocal performance as well. Really interesting story that we go on with it. And I got nothing but love for that. You know, they'd just be good, just as good live as they would in the studio. In addition to that, I think that the actual instrumental parts behind Lofi are spectacular. It's not just a dum bum ba bum 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 bum, that kind of rhythm that is fun. It has a great groove to it, and it's elegant, and you can kind of dance to it, almost dance through the near melancholy that we're approaching with it. But the extensions and the chords offer a kind of flamenco-ish, almost kind of they sound complicated. There's a spice and a groove to it, almost like it's like a lust for life. But at the same time, there's a frustration that we aren't getting what we want there. It's also relatively pleasant nonetheless. It's almost like we're kind of contrasting the relative intensity of what we're discussing, the difficulties, and trying to make them a bit more sort of like manageable, but the chilled nature of it, you know. And I just think that coupled with some of the wonderful little bits of space we have, such as with some of the ascending guitar and piano arpeggios at one part that I pointed out, it's just those little bits of charm and flair that make a song feel alive and kind of remind you that you're listening to someone not just alone, but also with it, with a backing group there who are in tune with what they're doing and making something really special. Um, that last part where they kind of go count in and you go back to the main motif with like the backing vocals on the sides doing like harmonies there, and you have the iteration of the groove there. It's almost like we've told our story and we're just allowing the person to kind of sit there and ponder what we've discussed and see if we relate to it. And yeah, very, very strong structurally, instrumentally. And it's just honestly the icing on the cake is the way that we handle the studio recording, mixing, mastering. It's not just that the vocals were kept raw when they needed to. It's also that we just had a really fantastic sounding overall composition and performance there because the way things were recorded, way they were treated there. It almost sounds like a live take, but there's like a vintage cinema feel to it somehow. Like it almost sounds like some of the music from like the 60s and 70s and the way they've recorded it. It's just there's some magic going on in there from a post-production perspective that is not too on the nose. And I kind of like the warmth and feel for that. So thank you to Dinahay for requesting this track from an actor named Lofi titled Falling Behind. It was a really cool song. 2 really cool tracks so far today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the music so far. Blue Dinner Box says her name is in Icelandic is pretty hard to pronounce. I can only imagine. It would be difficult. Some parts of the world, their languages are just brutal. Just brutal. And it's very difficult. There are some languages where like with Mandarin, as I understand it, you can say like a consonant and a vowel, like CA or something like that. And depending on how you say it, it will sound different or mean a different thing. And that's just kind of wild to me. It's kind of crazy, but it's also the beauty of the world and the degree of variety we have within it. I think it would be sad if things were too similar. We need that kind of spice of life. Judith, this is very, very lovely tune. I'm glad that you like it, Judith. I'm glad that you liked it too. That's awesome. So we have ourselves another track here from Judith. This track, we don't know what it's going to be. Thanks for your request. Yeah, Mandarin, Japanese, and Maori vowels sound very similar. I'm trying to figure out how the Maori come into play with the Japanese and Mandarin. That is very that is fascinating to me. Because they are very similar. For sure, absolutely. I'm not sure how that happened or the topology. Nope. What's the study of languages? Linguistics. I don't know what the journey was there, but I'm sure someone does. But yeah, we got a one from Judith. It's a recent discovery. What is this? This is te. I'm not sure how to say that, so we're gonna just gonna say here, what do we got? We're gonna go to DeepL to kind of translate this, I think. I just kind of want to get a feel for what's going on there. I don't know where Japanese. The night hides the light, drinks in many secrets, and nurtures the dreamy imagination. That's cool. So we got that. Awesome. So this is Judith's request there. It's quite a long one, but that's cool. I'm gonna put that here. Let's do it. I mean, it's just so instant, isn't it, Judith? But it's cool. I dig it. Very used to filtering there with pedals. Great call and response with the drums and the bass there as well. It's always very satisfying when we return to a motif like that after a bit of an adventure. There's an interesting pushing to the sound of that hi-hat there. I try not to avoid tracks too much because I know people like listening to them, but just the way that we produced this, the kind of boxiness of the tone there, I think it does work to add a sense of cohesion. So that was Tay. The night hides the light. Drinks in many. A thoroughly instrumental performance. Nice. So, what do I think this track is about? I'm going to assume that the instrumental part was trying to suggest what was going on within the piece there. You know, you get you can tell a lot from a song based on how it sounds. I know that sounds so basic, but just have a think about it for a minute. Isn't it amazing that without words we can kind of imagine an entire adventure through that? You know, the human imagination is a phenomenal thing. It was released around 9 years ago. It's got a lot of love, like about 144. That's good. That's a good amount of plays. So I think one of the things I appreciate is that they managed to have enough different ideas whilst returning back to that main motif to keep things intriguing for the whole 4 minutes. There was a lot of range to the individual instrumental performances, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it's just being able to sort of like pop off like that and have a high intensity relatively quickly, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, exactly. Part of what works so well is that they absolutely do not muck around structurally either. We have a lot of different ideas and musical concepts, but then we kind of like smash them out. We move forward like that. And there's absolutely no filler. There's no filler within this. Granted, I suppose if you are expecting more context about the tale, at some point you might want lyrics, but then there are people in it. There are just people who do not like instrumentals. Yeah, there are just people that just do not like instrumentals, and that's just what it is. Um, but it's just like the use of the different like filters, like on the bass and stuff like that, to kind of go wheel like that, to kind of have that call and response, and to go into like a 16th note drum fill with the guitar playing interesting like bar chords on the side there. There's just a lot of really tight instrumental playing as well. And that's kind of what you need for a song like this, especially as an instrumental. You not only need to have a journey that you're going on with lots of different sort of like chapters within reason, like too much it becomes potentially abrasive, or just, it might just become a little bit too much for some people. But for others, it becomes this environment where there's that like realm of possibility is almost endless. And like we maintain a sense of like the relative feel of it, quote unquote, bomb, 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 bomb. It's almost a bit slower because of those accents on those specific hits or offbeats. But then we move into the eighth note offbeat hi-hats there, and add sort of a dancey kind of shuffle with it, with the ambient textures in the mid to high range there being nice and misty, kind of ghostly, but very beautiful at the same time. And it's just fantastic how you had the punchiness as well of the bass and drums and all that kind of stuff with those quarter note grooves, as well as the effects change on top with the guitars, the tremolo picked up arpeggios and melodies there. And it's also knowing that they can go down. They're not just staying up the entire time, that they can come down and be a little bit less abrasive or aggressive, that they can like, not that abrasive is the wrong word, because it doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound off-putting. It's just when you've got those kind of gritty, distorted textures and stuff like that, it can be like kind of it sounds a bit heavy without adding a whole lot of low end down there. But yeah, I think finally what I would sort of like comment on just before we finish, because I try to talk about a few things per track, and I've sort of talking about quite a few for this one. Yeah, simply because I just really like it. I think it's a fantastic effort. It's just that the studio production over top of it was able to capture all those synthetic elements with the sparkly kind of like parts on top. The variety of different drum grooves, like the actual cymbals and kicks and snares, and having them nice and kind of like glued together without being too boxed in. The bass nice, thick and full in the low end there with a great tone to it, and allowing itself room to breathe there. And the guitars on the side as well, having an almost kind of like new metal, old metal kind of feel to it, in a way that sparkles. I just think ultimately there was definitely enough range here to keep things going, interesting structurally, compositionally, and performatively. Really talented band, made the most of real estate. And great song, great first impression to Tay, I suppose. So thank you to Judith for putting this track through from an Acne Tay titled The Night Hides the Light, Drinks in Many. Judith says, I like the feeling that I'm not sure where they're going to take me to, but I certainly want to see how far I'll reach. Yeah. I think that's honestly like very quickly should be the point of all music. Like, or most of it, because you're spending 2 to 3 minutes, if not more, with a song, you shouldn't know what's going to happen next. It shouldn't be predictable unless like it's a cover or something like that or a tribute. In my opinion, I want to have a new experience when I hear something. I don't know what it is like for you guys, but um, and pure instrumental is tough. I had a fair share of experience when our band was practicing the chicken. What's the chicken? What's the chicken? I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the chicken. But either way, cool song. So that was from Judith. Who have we got next? We've got two more. We've got Chromino, so we can add 2 to the queue. Thank you, Judith. As well as to Dinahay and Jacob Good so far. Chromino with the next pick. What does Chromino have so far? By the way, Chromino, if you're watching this, hopefully you're well and having a good weekend. Whatever you're doing. This is Warmthaholic by Zutamayo. Excellent. I'm excited for this. This should be good. We got that on Spotify. Jungle and J Soft Rock. Let's go. Let's do it. Zutamayo time. Hear that album on the screen there.
遥か先の想像力ぐれた夢を見てしまうな春は抜け出すの花を覚えた気づいてこの世
I can definitely hear the jungle in there.
冬は形あるものに込んだ僕は冷たい苦い明日の予定を共に立てた汗が込み上げてしまう解釈違いの意思で慎重化されてゆく偏見自在の場合ウィンウィンでいたいけど近づいてもいいの追いかけても追いか
Great vibe shift.
けてもまた夢になる
Great vibe shift, so I say. Okay, never mind. It's very high octane, isn't it? Like, this is so much happening a lot of the time. I mean, I like it. I mean, part of what I like about Zutamayo's music is it's always so full of life and vigor. It's always an adventure. It's always a journey. You never know quite what you're gonna expect. This was Warmthaholic from Zutomayo. What do I think it's about? I assume that it is about wanting to be as warm as you can. It's a very cozy sounding song, despite some of the chaos inherent within it. I think the vast majority of it is really gorgeous. So part of what makes this so it is Jan Clark. The queue is open. I realize it's not as big as it usually is. It's because I have less space on the screen. Hang on. Can I do this? I can do that probably. No. No, I can't. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Yeah, usually it goes up to there, eh? Ah. I don't know. I'm messing around with what I shouldn't mess around with. Hang on a minute. I'm just gonna just do it. If I go over here, that can go up to there. Yep. Yeah, see, it's tricky because that's already on that side. Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep it that side. It's kind of brutal. Yeah. Yeah. I can't really make it bigger than that, can I? No, even if I do that, it's diminishing returns. Yeah. I get it. It still kind of looks, it's not easy to see on the screen. Anyway. So part of what I liked about this track is how kind of cute Zutomayo's vocals sound within it. It's incredibly easy to listen to. Incredibly easy to listen to. There we go up here. What if we go here? Does this? It does. Good. Okay, problem solved. Moving on. Throughout the vast majority of it, there's always just a really lovely tone and expression to their voice there, and they effortlessly navigate the complicated harmonies, the melodies, everything going on with their tracks, regardless of the perceived intensity of it. I think that's part of why their music works, because they don't just kind of like have massive changes in the feel of it. I mean, like that part there. Hang on. There's a part where like things kind of come down a little bit, and there's like a change in like the way we sort of sing there, but it's almost very kind of floral and flagrant and very pleasant to listen to. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about this track. I think secondly is just the ability to put all of these different elements and ingredients together in a way that makes musical sense, because it's an incredibly complicated and intricate piece. I mean, there'd be about between 10 and 20 different instruments within this doing different things. Like the mixing of this track could be complicated because of all the different things we're trying to include. By the way, sup to Minman and Jan Clark, hopefully having a fantastic weekend. What was I saying? No, that doesn't work. Oh, it's just messy. It annoys me that that's off. I can do this. Hang on. Like there's really subtle parts. So like there's chord progressions in the background that are thank you very much, my man. I appreciate it. I think like the subtlety of like the chord progressions works well because they're doing a specific thing. And then you've also got like the drums, which are feeling phenomenal, like 16th note grooves there that are just so easy to listen to. So easy to listen to. There we go. That's better. That's bugging me. And just like the pace of it has got a great sense of energy to it and is very compelling the entire time. What if I do that? Nope, that doesn't work either. No, it's all right. I'll sort that out later on. But then like the thing is that the vocals are always like the forefront. So like even if we have the strings on the side that are like playing these like whole notes and kind of adding a sense of romanticism and like beauty to it there with how they almost like a Parisian feel to it. But the drums are never too kind of pokey. They never kind of smash at you too much. It's very kind of like upbeat and kind of like almost laissez-faire in a sense. It could just be because the production is incredibly tight though, the gluing. Because when I hear this, I think, man, that the compression on this track is tight. Like the leveling and everything like that is very kind of like to the point. Like there is dynamic range, but it's almost like purely compositional. Like they're really trying to push it to make it so that things are the same loudness across the board. It's just more that if things come down, it's just because, as I said, they're taking stuff away. And that's a difficult thing to do with studio production because that requires you having like the optimal level of like the threshold and ratios of different instruments. It's also difficult to have this level of polish to the post-production because like the EQing and filtering evolved. Actually recording the instruments and all the different samples and everything in a room, you need a really, really good studio space to be able to do that in, regardless of like anything outside of production and mix and master buses and stuff like that. But I suppose just getting back to the extra instrumental performances, it's not just that you have a wide range of like keys and harps and synths and strings and bass and drums performing different facets. It's also that a lot of what they're doing is incredibly complicated. It's not like this is like pure grade 8, it's like high level instrumental performances for a wide variety of these different instruments. Like the drum parts themselves are absolutely like mind blowing in the way that they kind of finesse across time work and across the main quarters eighths, triplets and sixteenths and stuff like that. And I know these are like kind of like jungle and J-soft rock, a kind of fusion of those two, but it's also how we kind of break away from that and we have these kind of triplet like accents with like the chords and a sense of sort of chromatic kind of drama to it. We have chromatic shifts and parallel majors and minors like harmonically and compositionally. And we almost have a sense of controlled chaos, as I mentioned earlier, where like we know how to create something that sounds thoroughly pleasant and then we know how to break it so that we can come back into it later on. Yeah. So it's really, really effective songwriting is what I want to say. There's just a lot more I want to say about this track in specific, but I think what I'll do is I'll leave it there. For now, I just want to say excellent effort. Excellent effort. Very, very cool music. Very, very cool music. Yeah. Does that look okay? No, it does not. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Leave it. Leave it. Walk away. Logan, leave it. Leave it. There we go. That'll be fine. I'm not doing any more with this. There we go. I'm going to stop messing with it now. Moving on. So that was a great track. I think those are the 3 things I wanted to say about it. And thank you to Chromino for that request. That was sick. Man, that took longer than I was expecting to do. Sorry about that, guys. It bugs me when I have stuff set up and then it just doesn't look okay. Okay, we're going to breathe. Awesome. What have we got next? We've got a track from Paul7931. So what does Paul7931 have for us today? There we go. We have yeah, it's more that like when I don't know how to solve a problem, it bugs me. So like it just annoys me because I've had to change like the video size on my end, and then that gives me slightly less space on this end. I used to have issues with OCD when I was younger. Maybe this is an OCD thing. It's just more that I need the open thing to be big enough so that people can see it. And if it's not, then it bothers people, and then I have to explain that the queue is open and stuff like that. But thank you for your concern, I appreciate it. This next track is, see, that's just bothering me now. Okay, it's done. It's done. It is done. We're not doing any more with it. It's good. Okay. It is. No, we're not doing any more with it. We're literally stopping. So this is Paul's track, Eula, Evangelic Girl is a Gun. Q2 open. There we go. It's good. It's done now. Let's put that in. Let's start the new track. Come on. Oh. We've reviewed Eula before, haven't we? Isn't Eula's music kind of experimental for the most part? It's just great to have space to allow the synths, on the low end. It's almost like the vocal style and the effects chains on it kind of represent... You know what? Here. There. Q open. There's a Q. It is open. There we go. Good. Good. Done. It is very cyberpunk. So yeah, that was that was Evangelic Girl as a Gun. It was Paul's request. Thank you to Paul7931 for that. This is a bit of a kind of an avant-garde one. I'm not really sure how to describe this one. I almost get the feeling that overall it's describing maybe the music scene when they are getting picked up on the strip, etc. It's like the girl is being picked up by this guy in a bloodstained skirt, and like there's mentions of blood outside of that as well. So maybe it is discussing like being used by this person for whatever they need, and it's about like vampires as well, like scream at the sun, cry when you come. I'm not sure. Like there's also mentions of like morphine kissing, Marshall stacking, run that shit back again. And he ultimately like a gun and shoots me under crystal chandeliers. There's some interesting imagery there. So I'm not entirely sure. It's not straightforward, but that's my take on it. what do I like about this track? I think that one of the things I appreciate is the way that we express ourselves. It's got a kind of a chic, kind of cool, calm demeanor to it. There's some nice use of melody within it to harmonize and be a bit of a kind of brighter element on top of the mainly sort of industrial kind of like bass and the kind of drum textures there. But also the more spoken vocal lines are just a bit more kind of accessible and kind of grounded, down to earth. They're a nice contrast in that respect. And I like the effects change on the vocals as well. They have this kind of digital feel, which suits a lot of the cyberpunk is kind of vibes that we have within this. It's nice to have that kind of distortion and grit, illustrating the kind of more kind of chaotic, uncomfortable or evil sounding stuff that's maybe described within the track. It's a nice contrast. There's a nice connection there, should I say? And it's also the instrumental performance that I dig about this. I think when you're discussing this kind of subject matter, the kind of vocal style there, it works really well on top of a groove, a dance beat there. It kind of sounds like it'll work really neatly in a nightclub with the chord note kind of accents and everything like that going strong. I think that the way that we carried ourselves with the tightness of the extra drum parts as well, the way they sidechain the bass and not only having whole note bass parts, but also working really neatly with the how to describe it, with just underlying anything else that comes its way is really tight. I mean, like we have variation, we have 16th note kind of kick patterns when they're in the halftime parts. When we get into more sort of like anthem-esque hook parts, we allow ourselves to go full force. And that enough with the different grooves is enough variety within this 3-minute 3-piece, I think, to carry us across the line. I think a final comment that I'd make on terms of what I feel works about this track is the actual studio production itself. It's the way that things are mixed and mastered within this piece, the way they're recorded. I think a lot of this would have been produced in the DAW. There are a lot of the synths and samples, they sound sort of synthetic and digital, and I think that's kind of the purpose of the point of it. It's got a very kind of edgy, dramatic feel to it, but it's also, again, it's got like a lovely kind of mistiness to it that has a beauty that is a nice contrast to some other more gritty kind of distorted kind of caustic textures. It's just very much like a creative endeavor to try and make variety or change through post effects, filters and stuff like that. Adding like distortions and very reverbs and effects change and kind of filtering stuff to remove the low or the high, messing with expectations, making the most of the current technology that we have to make something truly unique. And I appreciate the fact that it's nice and consistent throughout. I think that if you have enough change dynamically in regards to the composition with the various layers within the frequency spectrum, you can get away with a really kind of like slick sounding track like this that doesn't have a massive amount of, like doesn't have any like really big, long, low parts or whatever. It also suits the kind of thing I think is a closing comment where we're discussing being picked up by this person and being taken places. I feel like it's consistent thematically with that. Just a day in the life of this person being used again and again and again. So ultimately, I think it's a really cool track. Thank you to Paul79331 for putting that through. Something a little bit different, but it's great to hear more Eula, and I'd be keen to hear more in future. That's cool though. So we've got another 4 tracks now after Paul's track. Or was that the one I just did? It is. It is that one. So mark it as completed. So I've done that one now. That is completed. Commissions. And the next one is from Minman37. Thank you to Minman for that. I think we're back to being back into review mode now after the OCD moment. Minmans37 says, "Oh look, this is grabbing me. Reminds me a bit of 80s dystopian sci-fi futuristic music in the best way." I would agree with that. It's kind of interesting how important music is to creating atmospheres and stylistic precedents. Yeah, as Joy and Joe said, Cyberpunk 2077. I'd agree with that. We're gonna listen to Minman37's one. What have we got? So this is Hot Milk. Where does the light get in? Let's do it. Have we listened to Hot Milk? I feel like we might have. I'm just not sure at some point. I might be confusing them for another band, but I'm not sure.
Mother raised me from a bed, beat me in existential dread. For breakfast this tempest washed out all the color cars. Another threw me to the wolves, tore out all my ventricles. Put plainly, I'm hurting, but did I deserve it? So tears and numb.
Great use of space.
Where does the light get
Get the art up there. ABA structure. Great place for solo as well. Oh, and then Major Resolution at the end. I really enjoyed this one. Honestly, this is probably my favorite track from today. I really like this one. Thank you for that, Minman37. This was Where Does the Light Get In from Hot Milk. Now, I think this track is about... We're talking about the flesh being ripped away, so I assume it's about someone going through really difficult times. And it's just wondering how they can find that light, you know, like how they can get out of that struggle, that situation that they're in. I didn't get all the words through clearly. I feel like I might be missing a bit of context. They were talking about all the things they had to do, etc. So maybe it's like they're trying to get through to someone else or something like that. I'm not sure. Or like, but either way, I think that it's a phenomenal vocal performance on behalf of both people involved. Part of it is that we balance well what's going on with the clean and the vocal fry there. We have some growly parts there, but it's almost like we use the fry to elicit a sense of added intensity with the expression, the emotionality of it, as opposed to simply, and this is not me being demeaning to metal. I like my metal. I like my metal a lot. I like my metal a lot, but it's just more like a situation where here it's really kind of angst related. It's very kind of like we're pushing ourselves. We can project outside of that, like the chorus section with the AABA, the male led, and then the female vocals with their own part, and like the B section. Like they can both project. The vocal technique in general is very, very, very good. They nail it. It's just more that the expression is equivalent to the actual technical proficiency of the performance. And I think that all the boxes are ticked. I think the second thing I appreciate is that we managed to create a track that sounds kind of poppy and like a catchy kind of anthemic kind of poppy, not like it sounds generic or like kind of like paid out, you know. It's just it's a really catchy track where like the hook lines are believable and you just kind of want to kind of like sing along to it. I feel like that fundamental is adhered to well. But it's also that we add a sense of extra kind of grit and heaviness to it. We had a guitar solo in there, which was kind of sick as well, but it didn't. Again, it didn't seem played out. Like we added enough to kind of be sort of quote unquote true to the genre. Have that sort of like the harder rock metal styles there with the down tuned like 7 or 8 string guitars there with the drums kind of like slapping away there in a way which is very satisfying, and we had a great sense of groove and pitch to it, but we also knew to allow space within it for things like there were little gaps and things structurally there. It was just a really well considered track that had a really solid balance between the sort of like more catchy elements and I think the metal stylings that just add a sense of extra weight to what the story that's being told there, at least in terms of how they sound, the chord choices and a lot of those other things. um I just think some of the chromaticisms and little bits of adjustment outside of the box there add a bit of kind of like harshness and kind of like oomph that makes it special as well. But I think finally it's that the studio production, recording, mixing, and mastering is fantastic. It sounds commercial grade. The vocals, guitar, bass, drums, everything else going on in there. Even those synth parts on top. Like everything on there, like there's space for everything there. You can hear everything clearly within the mix. The stereo field is fleshed out well with the mains and side vocals, and then you've got all everything else, wonderful stuff happening in between. And it's just a really great track to listen to, a fantastic first impression, and I'm glad I had the chance to check it out. So thank you to Minman37 for sharing that song. They're so talented. Every song of theirs is so vastly different but amazing. They've become one of my top 5 bands of all time, to be honest. That's awesome. I'm genuinely glad you found yourself a band that you really like that much. I think it's a really sacred, special thing when you find especially when you find a new band, you know, when you haven't heard before. It's not because it's not something you get every day. You can't take for granted that you're going to find a song you like. There's so much music out there, and you've got it. You know, it's an investment. You know, it's a time investment to try and find a song you like. But thank you to Minman37 for that. We've got Judith for round number 2. What does Judith have for us today? Apparently, there are so many covers of The Chicken for us to explore. I am keen to check out The Chicken. I don't know what The Chicken is. I remember you saying that it was kind of spicy in terms of an instrumental. Be good to see how spicy, or hear how spicy that is. Just remembering that it'll be 5 minutes of it, but I do look forward to checking this out. Oh, Jaco Pastorius. If it's Jaco Pastorius, then we're in for a wild ride, for sure. It's just tremendous. It's just tremendous how they're managing to flesh it out. A simple 12-bar structure that we can keep on looping. So have you got unlimited kind of flexibility with what you do with it? Are there like stylistic expectations on how you're supposed to approach it? I'm wondering if I'm going to remember the minute I'm up to. It kind of sounds like it's a little bit out of time between the audio and the video. I'm just going to like confirm that. No, it's fine. Sensational performance. Sensational performance from the saxophonist. 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 Nah, never mind. So everyone's getting a turn, basically. Can someone please tell me what the name of that instrument is? Please. Like, I want to say calypso drum, but I don't think that's correct. What is that? What is that drum there? It's a hell of a solo though, isn't it? Thank you, David. Thank you for that. A steel drum. Thank you. I wanted to not, and I'm not going to pretend that I had an inkling that it could just be called a steel drum. I automatically overcomplicated it in my head and assumed it would be something else. Steel drum, thank you. So that was the 5 minutes of this 6-minute 11 solo. I'm going to talk about a few other things I appreciate about this performance specifically, because I'm actually really impressed with a few different elements of it as if they needed. Like the musicians on stage, just before we get into it, are just insane. They are all incredibly talented, skilled, experienced musicians who had their own voice in that track. They knew how to solo, and it was just so damn cool to watch them each get the best out of their own respective instruments, whilst being respectful to everyone else, whilst also kind of maintaining the theme there and putting their own personality to it. It's just so cool. So one of the things I appreciated about this is just that the song was consistent with that 12-bar loop. I'm aware that that's the point of it, and that there are other songs like these that have that kind of phrase in there to allow for that. But there can be a tendency and almost like a perverse desire to not stick with the theme and to walk away from that and try and make it just a little bit too different. And that could be so tempting. And perhaps I speak from experience from when I first started to get the hang of instruments and playing with other people and bands and stuff, but the fact that they know to stick to the plan and allow themselves to be part of the foundation for everyone else, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. That's what you want. The last thing you want when you're in a situation like this is to kind of be your own agent unless it's your time to shine. And even then, everyone's so respectful to everyone else. It's just fantastic. So that's part of what I appreciate about it, is that the musicians were genuinely respectful of each other with a great sense of chemistry on stage. The second part I want to sort of discuss is that regardless of how hard any of these musicians went with their solo pieces, it was also just so incredibly, like, they're all unique. Like, they wanted to put their own flavor and approach it with the rhythms and scale shapes and modes and everything like that, the way they wanted to. But they also managed to incorporate most of the themes whilst also playing incredibly proficiently. Like, there's a lot of soloing in here on the saxophone, the trumpet, like the steel pans, as David said. Um, a lot of really cool stuff here. And I'm just gonna like just quickly finish this track, and then I need to just make an adjustment. That is genuinely impressive in part because of how we um just how hard the instruments are to play. These are not all built the same. A cloud pan or cloud drums are different. Steel drums are different to play than like a saxophone or a trumpet there. Um, but even just moving away from that, it's also the counterpoint where you have musicians like Jaco Pastorius and the people playing the hand drums, where they were far more reserved in their approach to this. They allowed everyone for 5 minutes just simply, they were just playing a similar to the same thing for most of it, with the tail end kind of going back into the loop and another person having a turn. To know to keep things, to have like to make slight adjustments. Um I love that each soloist always found that extra mile to twist the structure within a tight 12-bar duration. I agree with that as well. So, like, I could hear Jaco kind of move away from the main kind of idea, even when like we had the steel pan going. But it was never too far away. Even somehow when he used chromatics, even somehow when he was moving away from the scale shapes, the fact that we knew to color it in that way is just incredible. It's just fantastic. It's very, very difficult to do. I think the final thing I want to sort of discuss, and I've said this a lot, studio production, but it's different in a live environment. What I want to sort of like say is that even when we were pushing the instruments and you could hear a little bit of analog crackle because of how loud they were, the actual mixing and mastering of this piece is fantastic. You can tell it's been played together in a room, but they're not trying to oversaturate and overproduce it. They're simply trying to do this thing where they just try and capture the moment. And that can be so important. It can be so important to do that because in this world, you only get one chance to have that performance. You don't just go into a studio and you record an extra 50 takes of something and pay your money. You get one chance to do that. And here, just everyone comfortably sashayed through that, and the recording engineer nailed it. Very, very impressed with the EQing, filtering, the way things were panned, the stereo panning of it, the actual dynamic range, the compression of it. You could hear the crowd and everything like that at one point. So like it's here, everything's recorded, but like, yeah, just impressive work on post as well. So thank you to Judith for sharing this really cool video for the chicken. I loved it. I thought it was great. I haven't heard the chicken before. I'm glad I have. And yeah, shout out to Jaco for allowing everyone to kind of have their moment before him. I assume he might have come in a bit later on there. I'm not sure. But either way. No. I think that's just his mood. That's his vibe. He was just being supportive most of the time. So that's really cool. Thank you for that. And that's class right there, right? Joy and Joe says, this guy is a legend. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't, have you listened to much of his work? Judith, have you listened to much of his work? I mean, like I haven't heard much of his work, but I have a healthy respect for it. I think anyone who can master an instrument and then allow for another 12 in a situation like this is to be respected. But this next track after this one is from Draw In Joe. What does Joy and Joe have for us today? Is The Chicken your favorite song of his, or are there other songs that you like as well? Oh, this is Mozart. Requiem K626. Hi, Spiderhands. So this is Joy and Joe's message. Hi, Spiderhands. Mozart is my favorite composer of all time. Requiem is an unfinished masterpiece. Mozart sketched the bass line and vocals for Hostias before he shortly died. I was watching Pope Francis' funeral today. The church music reminded me of the song. Oh, did they have the funeral today? Did they have the funeral for Pope Francis today? That'll be on the news. I might watch that, eh? I might check that out to see how it was. It is sad. He seemed like a lot of the stuff he was about was kind of cool. You know, like I liked how he was more accepting of some people, you know, like, yeah, no, it's a complicated thing to talk about. I just like that he was a little bit less conservative, but we won't get into that here, at least on my end. Although being an atheist, I wanted to thank Pope Francis for his kind efforts to shape our world in better form in his best possible ways. Yeah, that's basically that's what I should have said initially. I agree with that. I think that's great that we had a pope who was trying to do some positive things, to be a bit more accepting towards people that might not have actually been included initially. You know, R.I.P. Pope Francis. And who knows what'll come next. The Chicken is the song I struggled on when I was transitioning from rock to jazz funk. Going from rock to jazz is difficult. Good on you for having a go at it and for continuing to stick through it. So this is Mozart Requiem, Hostias from Vienna Sing Verein. I feel like I shouldn't be talking. Excellent. That's crazy that that's the last song that they made before that started writing before they passed away. How do you feel that it compares in regards to like their previous works? So this was Hostias from Mozart Requiem. That felt like an incredibly intimate performance. There's just something about classical music where it's like I feel like I'm in the room with those people listening to them. Just not just because of the way that it's performed and written, but also the way it's produced. Like it's yeah. Sacrifice and prayers of praise, O Lord, we offer to you. Receive them on behalf of those souls whose memory we commemorate today. Grant them, O Lord, to pass from death to life as you once promised to Abraham's descendants. Yeah, oddly fitting, isn't it? So that's what the track is about, I think. It's about those prayers to God and hoping that, you know, we would pass them from death to life, etc. It's a beautiful thing to write a song about. For people, this is a really important concept for people who are religious. Um, and I think that it's a beautiful thing, really. It's a wonderful performance vocally. I mean, clearly, there's an entire choir backing them up like that. And it changes in the affectation and feel throughout. We have different chapters and stages of it, and I think that that is appropriate. We do not take for granted the audience's attention hundreds of years ago, let alone nowadays. And it's just so gentle at the beginning with lots of whole notes, with the strings matching that, a dreamlike flowing state with wonderful progressions there, lots of majors and minors. They're staying away from any specific like kind of harsh textures or anything like that. And there's dynamic range to it. We don't stay the same louds the entire time, but that part of that is simply that it's very organic, that we simply are working between the pianissimo all the way up to mezza fortissimo, for example. Like I'd say, and I'd say for the most part, it is just strings and vocals, right? But then the entire string section plus the entire choir sounds so huge because the recording itself was not squashed. They allow themselves to have that space within the meter there to go from quiet to sort of like, quiet to loud. And there's constantly churning notes within the harmonies there. We don't just work within the majors or minors there. We work some diminished triads there. We add a bit of kind of like spice with some flat fifths or chromatic notes there. But not necessarily like a jazzy inference such as in the 20th century. It's more like modular, if anything else. And as is, Joy and Joe says, I like how Mozart frequently changes chord progressions in his works. Yeah, absolutely. I think that that was an awareness that we needed to have that. I think that when you have a motif, it only gets you so far. You've got to continue to develop and adjust your piece throughout, and I think they knew that way back then, which is part of why their music is still played today. Like you look at a lot of different classical pieces and there's lots of that going on. Sure, there might be a main idea that's present there, but they don't sort of rely on it to an extent where it breaks. I think I like the fact that like it's intentionally more direct and kind of spiky with the staccatos in that later section there. Almost like there's a sense of urgency as we come to the realization we really need to call out. And I like how there's this kind of like interesting relationship between the string parts and the vocals there where we kind of are aware of one another and we match, and it's very sort of like well connected in that regard there. I don't think you could do this. I don't think you could, with the vocals or the strings alone would have had as much hit without them both being interconnected like that. And again, like there's like great use of dynamics, but also space in a piece like this where we allow ourselves to appreciate again the various movements with the string parts, the lows, mids, and highs. They're exploring the frequency spectrum. They're reinforcing and integrating with those main chord progressions and root notes, but also allowing plenty of room for the vocals to come on top a bit later on, sort of do their thing. And like, I like the fact that then it resolved to a major, didn't it? It did resolve to a major. So what I want to sort of like mention as a final thing here, sort of thematically, is that even though we had these twists and turns with the drama and tension of the performance there, We ended it on a major note, I think, because in the end, we were celebrating the fact, I think, that we could actually have a chance to have our prayers heard at all. Almost, maybe it's almost inferring that our prayers were answered. Maybe when Mozart was writing this, he was of the understanding that he'd finally believed that God had heard him or something like that, and that was this representation of that. Maybe he knew he was dying. I think that's a valid, possible thing that could have occurred. He was a very intelligent individual, and it just, it's really kind of something fantastic. And that major resolution can be communicated with how the vocals are written. You don't need the entire orchestra to be sort of like spaced out in order to have that ending. So I think that even though we had these twists and turns and adjustments and mixtures in the intensity, we got to a point where we reached a satisfying conclusion, and it was just a wonderful experience. A really beautiful song. I'm glad I had the chance to listen to it. Thank you to Joy and Joe. I feel that a track like this needs a bit more kind of a deep dive or more sort of sophisticated analysis. It's simply I need a few listens through it to really sort of like get stuck into it. But I'm glad that I had a chance to hear it anyways. Nothing but love for it, man. And I think that classical music is a really, I mean, clearly we just wouldn't have music without it. I know that's such a basic thing, isn't it? We wouldn't have music without classical music. It really cannot be understated how important it is to give credence to that. There's a reason why. Yeah. Anyways, I don't think I think you guys understand the importance of classical music and respect to it. And like, I suppose, for me personally, like having studied a little bit of music history, like knowing that classical, romantic, baroque stuff, they lasted across a period of like a couple of hundred centuries, like at least like 150 years or something like that. For us to then have so much movement in 100 years musically, or 125 years, like you consider, we had three sort of like big periods, and then the 20th century, like a billion genres. And I'm not saying for a moment that there weren't other styles of music in other parts of the world during that time. That's not what I'm getting at all. It's just more, yeah, it's crazy how music exploded for various reasons and bits and pieces. But we have Dr. Theo's request here. How you doing, Dr. Theo? You good? Hopefully you're having a great day today. I think we also have another one from Paul7931. This track is, by the way, from Paul. It's titled Chlorine by 21 Pilots. Hopefully, y'all are watching this. Hopefully, you're having a good weekend, been taking care of yourselves. I said that at the start of the live stream. I maintain that. And you're welcome, Joy and Joe. Thank you for sharing music. I like music. I like classical music. I really haven't heard enough of it. But Chlorine by 21 Pilots. Interesting panning. Beautiful movement there. Especially with those cascading piano, those keys in the background. Interesting vocal modulation here. That's not vocal modulation, actually. It's just simply the range being adjusted there with reverb tails.
Had you in my coat pocket where I kept my rebel red. Felt I was invincible, you wrapped around my head. Now different lives I lead, my body lives on lead.
Oh no, there is.
Lines may read incorrect until said. The lead is terrible in flavor, but now you double as a paper maker. I despise you sometimes, I love to hate the fight. And you in my life is like sipping on straight chlorine. Let the vibe slide over me. This beat is a chemical. Beat is a chemical. When I leave, don't save my seat. I'll be back when it's all complete. The moment is medical. Moment is medical. Sipping on straight chlorine. Sipping on straight chlorine. Beat is a chemical, yeah. Let the vibe, let the vibe. Let the vibe, let the vibe. Moment is medical, yeah. I'm so sorry I forgot you. Let me catch you up to speed. I've been tested like the ends of a weather flag that's by the sea. Can you build my house with pieces? I'm just a chemical. Can you build my house with pieces? I'm just a chemical. Can you build my house with pieces? I'm just a chemical. Can you build my house with pieces? I'm just a chemical.
And it just comes down to that part. Beautiful. I'm not gonna lie, Dr. Theo, I'm not super sure what this one's about. I'm sure he's not literally sipping on straight chlorine. I'm wondering if it's about someone who's been out of their life. Because this is Chlorine by 21 Pilots. Someone who's come into their life again after a while. Things were toxic. They just couldn't really cope, with the person being there. Loving what I'm tasting, venom on my tongue, depending at times. Poison of vibrations help my body run. Maybe it's like a chemical dependency or something like that. The beat is a chemical. I'm not sure. Maybe music stuff that he comes across with his music. Hide you in my coat pocket where I kept my rebel red. Felt I was invincible. You wrapped around my head. It's interesting. I used to hate I despise. Now you double as a paper maker. Is it? It's not smoking or something like that, eh? I've smelled chlorine gas once in high school chemistry class. It stinks. Yeah, it's not good, eh? Did you guys oh right. This music is about the cathartic effect writing and creating music has on Tyler. The chemical spoken of throughout the track is a metaphor for music. Cool. I just wasn't sure if I necessarily wanted to commit to it being a beat in terms of literal or whether the person was setting the beat. But Occam's razor. Thank you for that, Dr. Theo. I appreciate it. Did you guys have schools where they just didn't manage the pools very well? But I think it talks about chlorine, sodium chloride. So I think, yeah, this track is about their relationship, the cathartic effect writing and creating music. So what do I like about the song? I think I like how earnest the performance is from the vocalist. It's not just that they sing those cleans well near the end. It's not just that they had some really interesting vocal effects in the lower range of the octaves and some parts there. So it had sort of like made the music them sound bigger and a bit kind of more modern and kind of synthy, and worked well with some of the more electronic textures within the piece. It's just that we didn't overcomplicate the performance there. We had sort of like backing vocals on the sides and stuff for a bit of extra space and kind of heft to it. But like, it's like, it's catchy, it's simple, it's minimalist, but effective. So I appreciate that the words came through clear in that regard and that we performed well and showed polish on the mic. In addition to that, it's a relative simplicity of everything else within the piece. It's like, it's a song where you had these other instruments and they performed specific functions, like the actual piano lines that we discussed, the right-hand parts are complicated piano bits, but because there's like a repetition or a looping of those, that idea is repeated. And then it becomes more sort of like visible and like palatable with, like, it was already beautiful. What I say is, it's just you play it once and then you put it in over and over and it creates a nice loop. That's what I was getting at, a nice kind of like part of the track. So the drums, like, I've heard the drummer in this group, they're ridiculous on the kit. The percussionist in this band is sensational. And for them to know to kind of take a step back and keep things a bit more kind of like conservative is cool, because it adds more of a kind of like a set funk and flow to it. Like, you can hear some like kind of like subtle bits here where like you can hear like some ride parts, some 16ths and rolls and stuff like that, but they're more kind of like low key, you know. And allowing space as well for the vocals, like in the mids to highs, the lows, etc. The harmonies to be able to float like that is fantastic, because it shows that they are the focal point. That we are creating space for that. And like there's little bits of kind of like ear candy, like the flutters and the bass creating a fantastic foundation, working well with the root notes. And so there's lots to appreciate, but they're in little compartmentalized additions, and they sprinkle the mix in a very pretty, and they fit well together. But it's not like a progressive middle like grade 9 piece or something like that on the rest of the elements there. But yeah, I think finally, you know, the production is commercial grade, but I want to sort of talk about the mystery of the song. I think that the way it's structured with "Can you build my house with pieces? I'm just a chemical." It's so confusing, but you kind of just sit there patiently listening to it because it's pleasant to listen to. And it's kind of like enforcing the idea that when you're writing music, it can be tricky. It can be kind of weird. But if you write music that people don't want to listen to, it doesn't matter how well you communicate. The music needs to sound great. It doesn't matter how much of a storyteller you are. People won't stick around to the end unless they like what they're hearing. So I like the fact that even though it's kind of vague, even though I've been given the explanation and I appreciate it, I dig that. Thank you again to Dr. Theo for helping me figure that out, helping us figure that out. It's just that we had a bit of confusion there, but it wasn't a detriment. It was that it was still pleasant to listen to, palatable, and even you just kind of feel in the vibe that they discuss, and you'll figure out eventually. It's very chill. So thank you to Dr. Theo for that request from Chlorine by 21 Pilots. This song got me listening to Trench, which was widely regarded as their best album, even by their haters. I'm just reading Dr. Theo's message. I love the beat of the song since it kind of has this underwater vibe. I can imagine a music video where it's a swim between two characters in a pool that's giving them a light show as one sings about their rough relationship. Because you've got more here. I kind of created my own story based off of this album, and my own idea of the song story is our MC using music to reunite with someone they've been looking for from the previous song, My Blood. They meet up and go to a pool that was supposed to be used by rich people, but was mostly forgotten, and that's when the Chlorine music number starts. So this music's really important to you, isn't it? It's really important music to you. I think that's really cool. I think the last part is a Bible reference. I'm just a chemical part is saying that he's just a small part of the world. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Joy and Joe, you mentioned before that you liked how Mozart frequently changed chord progressions in his works and the fugue influence from Bach. I appreciate that too. I like that even though these are incredibly talented musicians who are at the pinnacle, the peak of their prime, you know, they also took what they could and learned from other people. and tried to make the most of the opportunities present. And they didn't treat it like, oh, I'm not going to do it because some other person did it. They took parts in and they made it their own, and they made fantastic music and grew it. Things developed overall. I like that a lot. Or chloride, magnesium, whatever, salt, chloride, salt, they exist in our tears. Yeah, it's interesting, eh? Do you like science? I don't know if you guys went to a school where they had a science block. When I was a kid, they didn't have a science block at the primary school we went to. So we didn't learn about science until I went to high school. So I had to play catch up. Not as much fun as you think it is. We got one more track today from Paul. What does Paul have for us today? So this is Tong Poo with YMO 1979 live at Hurrah. Let's do it. It looks very interesting, Paul. What do you like about this track? We'll get Paul here. We're done. This has been a longer session today. Hopefully, again, the audio and everything like that's been a bit better today. Yeah. YMO, let's do it. Thank you to Paul for this. Paul7931. Live at Hurrah. Subtle cigarette. They are cool synths. That bass line is phenomenal. Hi, Kirk. Hi. Hello. I mean, the guitar playing is just phenomenal. Things are good here, man. How about yourself, Kirk? What's going on this weekend? Can we just like pause and appreciate the absolute monstrous guitar solo that was? Like, what is that? Those notes were ridiculous. How was he doing that? Like, what? It was so easy to listen to because of just how smooth everything was, but that was just ridiculous. That's such an incredible guitarist. Mind you, the 16th on our hi-hat, they got a good groove to them too. I feel sorry. I feel sorry for having to stop that there at that 5 minutes. That sucks. That was a fantastic piece, dude. That was fantastic. You know, you had the guy with the cigarette getting started with it, and you're like, what kind of journey, what kind of adventure are we going on with this? What is the song about? Paul7931, if you're here, what do you reckon the song is about? Either way, as an instrumental, it's incredibly compelling. One of the things I liked about this is, again, it's similar to the Jaco Pastorius track that we heard, where you had some elements, such as the drum kit, for example, being very, very kind of like specific with the way that they needed to keep the groove going. They had the chord notes going strong. They had 18s and occasional 16s. But what they did incredibly well was they were able to just provide a foundation for like stuff with whatever happened with the different time signatures, the movements there, etc. Because there were different time signatures and changes in meter as it went through. It was almost very through composed. And it was quite progressive, but it allowed for the innate ridiculous nature of that guitar solo, as well as a lot of the other kind of like lead and top melodic elements. But just the shred there, the movement with those bends or the slides and the sweep picking and stuff like that was divine. That guy was like a silly good. That's just mind-blowing stuff, man. But it's also the relative simplicity of some of those synth guitar parts, so synth key parts there, knowing that we didn't just have to have that crazy shred a lot of the time. That almost like we have a sense of movement if we need to have less or more. The energy being consistent, because a lot of the parts we had on those kind of like the drum grooves and stuff like that. But also knowing we can navigate those meters because we know how to resolve and go between sections. And like, there's just so much nuance with the main layers and sub layers as well. Like, you have that bum bum bum, and then the other part, and then we kind of have another thing trade off. And it's just such a complicated, intricate composition. It requires a lot of focus and like experience to be able to know not only how to get the scales and key signatures working to issue chromatics or modulations when necessary, but to then be able to play that live and have everyone be in time and fluid with a great sense of self-awareness and chemistry is just very rare. And so I think that's a really astute, and I feel lucky to have been able to check it out. I mean, just the wide vibrato on those guitar lines were tremendous. So it was not only like the structuring and the use of interesting rhythms and meters that was fantastic, but it was also the end of it, like the choices made by certain instrumentalists to either allow or to capitalize. And it wasn't guitar the whole time either. You know, like we took turns. And then we went back. We kind of went back to that more kind of like sort of clean guitar strummed parts there because we knew it was our turn to kind of take off and sort of give it space. So ultimately, just a really incredible instrumental performance with some really catchy, fun ideas melodically as the leads in this instrument that were not, of course, the vocals. We made great use of this 5 minutes we heard so far. I get faith and feeling that we would have had an equally intriguing, interesting time. Great use of dynamics as well, not the same loudness the whole time. Just a really compelling song. I don't know what they could have done to improve it. I think, especially as a final note, for this happening in 1979, that's wonderful. I look at the size of that synthesizer over there. That's crazy stuff. It looks like a spaceship, dude. Those would have that's money right there. That's actual money. That is a lot of money. That's like a house deposit nowadays, just with that synthesizer over there. I'm blown away by that. Thank you to Paul7931 for putting this track through. Tongpu YMO 1079 live at Hurrah. Awesome. Great stuff, man. What a beast of a track. The keyboard hook was wild. Absolutely. Honestly, there's so much fun stuff within that piece, within that 5 minutes. Like, honestly, like I feel like we can learn a lot as musicians from what's come before. And that's a perfect example of where I feel like, you know, if yeah, it's what it is. So just before we continue, the queue is now closed. So the queue is closed now. This means there will be no more after Kirk's. Okay? So then we've got one more track from Kirk. And yeah, that's it. But we've got Kirk now in chat. What has Kirk got for us today? I presume it could be an original if we've been doing some mixing. I'm not sure. Hey, awesome. So it is. I think this is an original track from Kirk. What do we have? Hey, and this is Things Left Unsaid. That's cool. Let's do it. Let's go, Kirk. The final track for today. And yeah, absolutely, Droyan. Electrical engineering at its finest. Absolutely. My music is very different. Good. I like that. I like when people do different things, because there's a hell of a lot of music that is the same. And it's very difficult to stand out otherwise.
It ain't the same without you. My life's so turned around and I ain't so proud of the things that I do since you left me, babe. And I'm so lost, I can't seem to find my way. I took these pills so they help me forget all the things you did and you said. I felt like things weren't really that bad with us, and now I'm stuck inside of my own head. Sometimes I wonder if you going through the same type shit, but I don't know because you left me on red. I seen you chilling with that guy, you always told me he wasn't nothing but just one of your friends. No, why'd you do what you did? Took a chance and you fucked with my head. You said some things are better left unsaid, but I don't care, I need to know why you left. So many things I don't know. I took my chances with the wrong asshole. She took my heart, ripped it out of my soul. I can't believe that she could be so cold.
I like the development so far. I was wondering when the stereo field would be explored. To have that drum kit come in at that point was good.
I got nowhere to go, and no place that I call my home. This house ain't really felt the same since you just decided to go. Fuck with my heart on the low. Back to the streets is where you ought to go. Throw out the memories me and you made so you don't have to cope. Racking up reasons to leave, none of these seem like they legit to me. Telling your friends and your family I am the reason you even decided to leave. Breaking my heart into pieces. You play with me like I was worthless. You make excuses to feel less, like you was the problem, like you didn't want it, but you was the one who had been left.
Yeah, see, this is what I like. I'm sorry to pause. I'll try not to do it before we finish the song again, but just, I feel like when you had that instrument coming on the right side then, that was kind of what I was expecting with those overdubs from the guitar to kind of come on either side of the stereo field.
Left. No, why'd you do what you did? Took a chance and you fucked with my head. You said some things are better left unsaid, but I don't care, I need to know why you left. So many things I don't know. I took my chances with the wrong asshole. She took my heart, ripped it out of my soul. I can't believe that she could be so cold.
Good. See that ending part was gorgeous. I dig it. I think it was fantastic. So let's talk about this track from Kirk. So my understanding is that this is about just a relationship that has just not ended out well. There are things we wish we could have said to this person, and they haven't, and we haven't been able to do that. And they got with the person we were told not to worry about, and like it just exactly. It's a conversation that we're trying to have with this person, trying to reach out with them. It's our attempt at doing that. So I think that that's an earnest story that a lot of people are going to relate to. I'm sure that most people, when they have come out of relationships have stuff, they wish that they could have said that they couldn't. Maybe they were just too sort of emotionally charged at the time. It's. I feel like it's accessible for people. One of the things I appreciate is that with the vocals, I like that we added a bit of kind of like it sounded raw. And I think that if we had tried to make it too clean, it might have taken away from some of the things that we were feeling there and made it a little bit less believable. I could hear a bit of a kind of a bit of a sizzle to it occasionally at times, like we were pushing it, and I like dynamically with like the effects chain. I think that was solid. I think it was cool. We had variety with the way that we sung and we rapped there, which I also appreciate. I think that was cool because we needed to have that change within even a 2-minute 59 track, because basically music in 2025 is accounting for attention deficit, like not the clinical diagnosis, but just generally people just do not have there's so much music outside of the fact that people don't have the attention spans that they had. There's just so much music that we need to consistently be giving people more and more to be able to kind of get behind, especially if it's our first impression. So I think that vocally we did that very well here. I'm very happy with that. I think that structurally, yeah. Yeah, no, I can tell. I think in general, like it's very good. I could tell that you've been doing some work on it. I think it's great. Honestly, no complaints about it. I think the vocals are one of the strengths of this track. I think that in addition to that, the gradual development of this track, I feel was great. I mentioned wanting a bit more around the sides of the stereo field there simply because it seemed very kind of like center heavy in certain respects, but that's not even necessarily even like a constructive critique. That's more simply that I'm used to a lot of songs having that come in a lot earlier. It's actually a unique thing to kind of deliberately stick in the center of the stereo field and then explore it a bit later on. Maybe it's also the world sort of coming back to surround us again after it had all those thoughts inside, and later on the world kind of expands a bit because we got off of our shoulders. Maybe we felt a bit constricted. There are ways in which we can justify that choice. So I think it's fine as it is. It's just more, I think that we did develop things well. I think it was good use of that. I feel like if it wasn't as impactful with the story that was being told, we might need to add more instrumentally, but that's cool. Things are well balanced at the moment. So I appreciate the way that it was structured as well. And I like that we didn't overcomplicate the arrangement. Yeah. And there's like these, like to be fair to you, Kirk, there are some subtle things we're doing, like where there's like a pad on the sides there. You can tell you've got sub-layers there and a sense of dimensionality to it, which I appreciate. There's no point in having everything the same loudness because then it will confuse the listener and they won't know what to listen to, and it will just be too complicated. So I think there's a finesse in the mix and a polish there that I appreciate. And it kind of gave me, I don't know how to say this, and I don't even know if it's a compliment or whatever. I hope it's not. I hope it's a compliment. Like it kind of gave me a Post Malone-ish kind of vibe to it. Just with the production and some of the compositional devices and stuff like that. But I think affected like the older, the before the country Post Malone, the Post Malone before the country stuff. But yeah, I think as a final note, I feel like for a first impression, it was solid. I think the actual way that things were like recorded, mixed, and mastered was tight. You could hear everything with things leveled well. The acoustic guitars weren't overproduced. You could hear them without Like that still sounded like someone like playing the guitar in their room, working things out. It had a sense of authenticity to that. And I think in general, the dynamic range to it with the loudness and the bus compression and limiting being handled is just very effective. Um, and I like the fact that at the end, again, it went out. It kind of finished with things being expanded. And it's cool. Honestly, I don't think I think basically if there was any feedback I'd give, it's just allowing, how do I say this? The moment we feel that we've got enough, we probably need to add one more thing just to cover for a potential attention deficit. If it's like to release and we're wanting to see if people are interested, we probably want to add one more thing in there just for attention deficit. Something else that is like a counter rhythm or like a reinforcement arpeggio for a chord or something like that. But outside of that, I think it's just tremendous. And that is just simply feedback, more not a constructive critique, but just more just a sort of a suggestion if we wanted to do more. I think it's a great first impression. I appreciate the work you've done on this. I can see yeah, maybe. Honestly, I would be tempted to like have like something again on the sides that kind of goes backwards and forwards, like a call and response. Da 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 dum dum. Da 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 boom boom, that kind of thing. But also, I'm not you, and you do know what you're doing. I wish you the best of luck with your music. I think it's great. That was really cool. So thank you to Kirk for that. And yeah, no, you've done. I can tell what kind of plugins you've used here. I think it's great. No, and I think if you had been more heavy-handed with the EQ, you might have taken out important parts of the spectrum. So I think it's fine. Yeah. Hey, you're welcome. Happy to help. Again, I think I try to be honest with people. It's just really quickly before we finish up, because it's been a long live stream today. I am honest with my feedback, and you may not believe that, but I am. Because as a reviewer, sometimes reviewers are seen, especially when you get paid to review stuff, sometimes people can think that you're getting paid to say nice stuff. No, I've gotten in trouble with people before. I've had people being very upset with me. Like one person even threatened a lawsuit one time. It's crazy. Back when I started, because I gave the client a negative review that I paid for. And it's just so liberating when I hear something I like. So thank you. But yeah. We're in conclusion time now. Conclusion time. Let's go. I just want to sort of give a shout out to everyone that put through requests today, as well as to everyone who who just hung out. Jacob Good, Dinahay, Judith, Cromino, Paul7931, Minman37, Joy and Joe, Dr. Theo, Kirk, as well as anyone else that I missed. Thank you very much for your requests, and also thank you for coming along to this live stream. Number 14. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you find some new bands or musicians that you liked. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll leave that here so you guys can see the chat. I don't know if you guys can see the chat anyways. I'm going to assume you guys are looking at the YouTube chat instead of the screen. Please remember to show your local musicians and artists Please remember to support your local artists and musicians at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. If you're an SB patron, I'll get your videos done this weekend. And we'll probably have another one of these next weekend. I think it'd be good to have another one of these next weekend. I'll schedule it on the Discord. So if you aren't with the Discord, maybe join the Discord. I think links in the description, and then you should be able to see the live stream schedule. And I'll catch you all in the next live stream. Kirk, I look forward to checking out your metalcore stuff. It should be good. And stay cool, Shredders. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for coming along. Spider Hands out. 3, 2, 1. Boop. And you're welcome, Judith. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming along. I appreciate it. It's just good. It's just good to talk to people. It's just good to talk to people, I like talking to people. I'm more comfortable. I don't know about you guys, just really quickly before I go. I'm more comfortable talking to people on a computer than I am in real life. I don't know if that's a problem or a solution, but see you later, guys. 3, 2,